Your brother loves this land too much, but every man has an ending.
And the boy?
Leave Emeka to me. Once Panwosu is gone, the land will belong to us. No mistakes.
A boy loses his father. His stepmother takes everything he should have inherited and sends him away. That is the story the whole town believed for 20 years. But it was not the truth. 20 years later, that boy has become a judge. The case before him could destroy the only person who never stopped trying to help him, the son of the woman he has hated for most of his life. By this story, you will learn why a dead woman's silence saved a boy's life and why the truth came 20 years too late. This story will test the part of you that likes to decide very quickly who is good and who is bad. But I must warn you now, you will be wrong, just as the man in this story was wrong for 20 years. They say, even if the truth comes very late, it is still the truth. Let us begin the way our fathers always did, from before the trouble came. In the town of Umuahia, not the busy town center, but the quiet farming area where everyone knew everyone else's business, there lived a trader named Pa Nwosu. He was not a rich man, but he had enough to take care of his family. He owned a small piece of good farmland that had been in his family for 3 generations. He also owned a shop near the main road where he sold building materials like cement, roofing sheets, and nails. His business did not make him rich, but it gave his family a good life. Pa also had one son from his first marriage. His name was Emeka. He was 14 years old when this story began. Emeka's mother died when she gave birth to him. Pa carried that pain for many years before he married again. 3 years before our story began, he married a quiet and hard-working woman named Osimiri. She had a young son from an earlier marriage. His name was Chibuzo. He was 7 years old, full of energy and always laughing. Osimiri was not a cruel stepmother. She gave Emeka the same food she gave Chibuzo. She fixed his school uniform when it tore. She stayed with him when his father worked late at the shop. But people in the town still talked. Some said Osimiri was lucky to marry Panwosu. Others whispered that no stepmother could truly love another woman's child as much as her own. If we are honest, my people, Emeka believed some of those whispers too. He had already lost his mother, so he noticed every little thing. He thought her voice sounded warmer when she spoke to her own son. Maybe it was true. Maybe it was only the fear of a boy who had already lost one parent. But those small thoughts stayed in Emeka's heart. Then, without warning, trouble came. Panwosu became sick with a sudden fever. Only 2 weeks later, he died. The people of Umuahia came together to bury him. They cried, prayed, and helped the family, just as people do in times of sorrow. But before long, the town began talking again. This time, it was not about grief. It was about gossip. People said Osimiri had secretly changed the papers for the land and the shop. They said she told the family that Panwosu had left nothing of real value for Emeka. Then, when Emeka turned 16, she sent him away to live with a distant uncle in the city. After that, no one in Umuahia saw him again. Soon, everyone believed the same story. Osimiri was a wicked woman. Emeka had been cheated out of everything his father wanted him to have. They say, the story everyone believes first is often the story no one stops to question.
Emeka grew up in the city with 2 things in his heart. He was determined to make a better life for himself, and he never forgot what he believed his stepmother had done. He worked hard in secondary school and earned scholarships to pay for his education. Some nights, he slept in a small room with 3 other boys. He also taught younger students after school to earn money for books and other school needs. Later, he went to the university and studied law. Deep inside, he wanted to understand the laws that had failed to protect him. He believed that if he became a lawyer, no one would ever be able to take what belonged to him again. Year after year, Emeka worked hard. First, he became a lawyer. Then he was chosen to become a judge. People knew him as a fair and honest judge. He always followed the law. He never took sides. He treated everyone equally, no matter who they were. Other judges respected him, but very few people knew about his childhood. Emeka never got married. He hardly ever spoke about his past. And whenever someone asked, he always gave the same answer. My stepmother sold everything my father left me and sent me away. He had said those words so many times that they no longer sounded painful. To him, they were simply the truth. But my people, sometimes what we believe is true is only the story we have heard the longest. Emeka did not know that Osimiri had died 4 years earlier. He also did not know that after he left Umuahia, money had been sent to his uncle's house once or twice every year. No one ever told him where the money came from. His uncle kept every naira. He never gave Emeka the money. He never even told him it was there. And so, without knowing it, Emeka kept living with a lie that had followed him since he was a boy.
Now, let us go back. Back to the days before Panosu died. Back to where all this trouble really began. Panosu's land was not very large, but it was in a good place. It sat on a corner where 2 roads met. To Panosu, it was family land that had been passed down for many years. But to a young and powerful politician named Chief Nnamdi Okonji, it was the perfect place to build shops and other businesses. Chief Okonji wanted the land. He offered to buy it, but Panosu said no. Not once, not twice, many times. Panosu believed land was more than money. It was the only inheritance he could leave for his son. But my people, some people do not accept no as an answer. Chief Okonji was one of them. Instead, he went to Panosu's older brother, Ikena. Ikena had been jealous of his younger brother for many years. His own business had failed again and again, while Panosu's shop continued to grow. Slowly, jealousy filled his heart. So Ikena and Okonji made a secret plan. If they could take the land away from Emeka, Ikena would claim it as family property. Then he would quietly sell it to Okonji. The 2 men would share the money. Not long after that, Panosu became sick with a sudden fever. He died only 2 weeks later. Something about his death troubled Osimiri. She felt that something was wrong, but she had no proof, so she stayed silent. Soon after the funeral, Ikena came to visit her. He spoke softly. He even sounded kind, but his words were full of danger. He told Osimiri that if the land was not given to him, Emeka might have a bad accident. He spoke about boys who disappeared on lonely roads and never came home. Osimiri understood exactly what he meant. She wanted to go to the police, but she knew they would listen to a powerful politician before they listened to a poor widow. She wanted to tell the family, but she feared that too much talking would only make Emeka's danger worse. For almost 2 months, she carried the burden alone. She prayed, she worried, she thought about every choice she could make. Then she made the hardest decision of her life. She secretly changed the land papers and put the land in her own name before Ikena could take it. She sold the shop quickly for much less than it was worth. Then she sent Emeka away to live with his uncle in the city. She did not do these things because she wanted money. She did them because she wanted Emeka to live. She wanted dangerous men to follow the land and the money, not the boy. So she stayed quiet. She let the whole town call her a thief. She let Emeka hate her because telling the truth would have put him in even greater danger. Sometimes, the greatest act of love looks like betrayal, And sometimes the kindest person is the one the whole world misunderstands. Chibuzo grew up in the same house where people spoke badly about his mother. Everywhere he went, he heard the whispers. There goes the son of the woman who stole her stepson's inheritance. Those words followed him for years. When he was young, he believed what everyone else believed. He thought his mother had done something wrong. But as he grew older, he noticed something strange. Whenever people talked about Emeka, his mother became quiet. Sometimes she would sit alone and cry. She never defended herself. She never argued with anyone. She simply carried the blame in silence. Years passed. Chibuzo finished school and got a job in the local government. His work gave him access to land records and other important documents. The more files he read, the more he saw that something was wrong. Money meant for farmers kept disappearing. Land records were being changed. Important papers went missing. And one name kept appearing again and again: Chief Nnamdi Okonji. At first, Chibuzo thought it was only a coincidence. But the more he looked, the more he believed that Chief Okonji had been stealing from the people for many years. Around that same time, Osimiri became very sick. She knew she did not have much time left. One evening, she called Chibuzo into her room. Her voice was weak. She held his hand and told him the truth she had hidden for more than 20 years. She told him about Ikena's threat. She told him about Chief Okonji. She told him why she had changed the land papers. And she told him why she had sent Emeka away. "I did not lose a son," she said softly. "I sent one away so he could stay alive." Chibuzo sat quietly as tears filled his eyes. Everything he had believed about his mother was wrong. Before Osimiri died, she asked him for one last favor. "If the day ever comes when it is safe," she said, "find Emeka and tell him the truth." Chibuzo held her hand tightly. He said, "I promise." A few days later, Osimiri passed away. From that day on, Chibuzo carried two promises in his heart. One was to honor his mother's name. The other was to find Emeka and tell him the truth. But he had no idea that keeping that promise would put his own life in danger. Years passed. Chibuzo worked hard in the local government. One day, while checking old records, he found something that shocked him. Money meant to help farming families was missing. Land records had been changed. Some documents had disappeared. The more he searched, the more one name kept appearing: Chief Nnamdi Okonji. At first, Chibuzo hoped he was wrong. So he checked again and again. Every time, the evidence pointed to the same man. Chief Okonji had been stealing money from the people for many years. He had also been using fake companies to hide the stolen money. Chibuzo knew he had a choice. He could stay quiet and protect himself, or he could tell the truth and risk losing everything. He remembered the promise he made to his mother. He chose the truth. He gathered every document he could find. Then, he secretly gave the evidence to investigative journalists. Soon after that, he stood before an anti-corruption panel and told them everything he knew. The news spread quickly across the state. People were shocked. Many believed Chibuzo was a brave man, but Chief Okonji was angry, very angry. He could not destroy the evidence, so he decided to destroy the man who had exposed him. First, one of Okonji's men came to Chibuzo with a large amount of money. "If you stay quiet," the man said, "this money is yours." Chibuzo refused. A few days later, he was offered a better government job with a much higher salary. All he had to do was stop talking. Again, he refused. When bribery failed, the threats began. Strange cars followed him home. Unknown people called his phone late at night. Some warned him to leave the state. Others warned him to keep quiet if he wanted to stay alive. But Chibuzo did not stop. Then, one evening, as he was driving home from work, his car suddenly became hard to control. He pressed the brake pedal. Nothing happened. His brakes had failed. His car left the road and crashed into a ditch. By God's mercy, he survived. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. The police later found that someone had cut the brake line on his car. It was no accident. Someone wanted him dead. But even after leaving the hospital, Chibuzo refused to give up. He said, "If I stay silent because I am afraid, then evil has already won." They say, courage is not the absence of fear. True courage is doing what is right, even when you are afraid.
By the time Chibuzo left the hospital, the whole country was talking about the case. People wanted justice. Others wanted the case to disappear. Because of how important it had become, the case was sent to the regional high court. The judge chosen to hear it was Justice Emeka Nwosu. Neither man knew that their lives were about to change forever. The day before the trial, Emeka sat alone in his office, reading the case file. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The case was about land. There were documents, witness statements, and reports. Everything looked like a normal court case. What Emeka did not know was that many years earlier, a clerk had made a mistake when writing Chibuzo's family name. Because of that mistake, Emeka did not recognize the name. The next morning, the courtroom was full. Journalists filled the front seats. Lawyers arranged their papers. Everyone waited for the judge. When Emeka walked in, the room became quiet. A few moments later, Chibuzo was brought into the courtroom. The two men looked at each other. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Slowly, they recognized one another. Emeka saw the little boy he had left behind more than 20 years ago. Chibuzo saw the older brother he had been searching for. Neither of them expected this meeting. The courtroom remained silent. No one else understood what had just happened. The law required Emeka to think carefully about whether he should continue with the case. He spent that night reading the law again. He prayed for wisdom. The next morning, he returned to court. He told both lawyers that he and Chibuzo were connected through family. Then he asked if either side wanted another judge. Both lawyers agreed that he should continue. So the trial began. Day after day, Emeka listened carefully to every witness. He studied every document. He asked questions. Slowly, the fake story began to fall apart. Some dates did not match. Some signatures were not real. Some witnesses changed their stories. Then, the court asked for older land records. When those old files arrived, Emeka found something that made him stop. There were old records with two names written together: Chief Nnamdi Okonji, Ikena Nwosu. The papers were from the same time his father had died. Emeka read them again, then again. For more than 20 years, he had believed one story. Now, for the first time, he wondered if everything he believed about his stepmother had been a lie. My people, the truth may hide for many years, but when it finally comes into the light, no lie can stand before it. After the court ended for the day, Chibuzo asked to speak with Emeka in private. When everyone had left the courthouse, Emeka invited him into his office. Chibuzo was holding an old brown envelope. It looked worn from being kept safe for many years. He placed it gently on Emeka's desk. "My mother asked me to give this to you," Chibuzo said softly. "She told me to wait until it was safe. I believe that day has come." Then he quietly left the room. Emeka looked at the envelope for a long time. His hand shook as he opened it. The handwriting looks familiar. It was of Simiris. As he began to read, his heart grew heavy. She wrote about the day Ikena came to her after Panmosu's funeral. She wrote about the threats he made. She wrote about how afraid she was that Emeka would be killed if he stayed. Then she explained everything. She told him why she changed the land papers. She told him why she sold the shop. She told him why she sent him away. She had never wanted his inheritance. She had only wanted him to live. Near the end of the letter, the handwriting became weak and shaky. She wrote, "Emeka, I knew you would hate me. I knew the whole town would hate me too. But if I had to choose again, I would make the same choice. I would rather lose your love than lose your life. I only pray that one day you would learn the truth." Emeka could not stop reading those words. He read them again. Then he read them one more time. For 20 years, he had carried anger in his heart. Now, that anger was gone. It was replaced by sadness and deep regret. He wished he could tell Osimiri he was sorry, but it was too late. She was gone. A few days later, Chibozo told Emeka one more secret. After their mother died, he had sent money to Emeka's uncle every year. He hoped the money would help Emeka. He hoped it would show that someone still loved him. But the uncle kept every naira. Emeka never received any of it. For a long time, neither brother spoke. They simply sat together in silence. My people, some wounds take many years to heal, but the truth is often the first step towards healing.
The day of judgment finally came. The courtroom was full. Journalists were there. Lawyers filled the front seats. People from Umuahia had also come to hear the final decision. Everyone waited quietly as Justice Emeka Nwosu entered the courtroom. He looked around the room. Then he began to speak. He did not speak with anger. He did not speak with hate. He spoke with the truth. After many weeks of listening to witnesses and studying the evidence, the court found that the case against Chibuzo was built on lies. The land document had been changed. Important records had been hidden. Some witnesses had lied under oath. The evidence proved that Chibuzo had done nothing wrong. He was found innocent. The courtroom became quiet. Then people began to whisper. The truth had finally come out. But the case did not end there. The court ordered a full investigation into Chief Nnamdi Okonji and everyone who had helped him. As more evidence was found, years of corruption came to light. Money had been stolen. Land had been taken from innocent families. Government records had been changed. Chief Okonji was arrested. His power could not save him anymore. Ikena Nwosu was also charged for the part he played in the plan that began more than 20 years earlier. At last, justice was done. But for Emeka, winning the case did not bring joy. That evening, he sat alone in his office. Osimiri's letter rested on his desk. He looked at it for a long time. For 20 years, he believed his stepmother had destroyed his life. Now he knew the truth. She had given up everything to save him. She lost her good name. She carried the blame. She let the whole town hate her. She even let Emeka hate her. All because she wanted him to live. Emeka closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his face. Not because he had lost the case, but because he had lost the chance to tell Osimiri one simple word: thank you. Months later, Emeka returned to Umuahia. It was his first visit home in more than 20 years. He first went to his father's grave. Then he walked to Osimiri's grave. He stood there quietly for a long time. No words came out. He did not need them. Sometimes silence says what words cannot. What does this story teach us? It teaches us not to judge people too quickly. The whole town believed Osimiri was a thief. For more than 20 years, almost no one asked why she made those choices. The truth was very different. She gave up her own good name to save a young boy's life. She accepted people's hatred because she loved him that much. This story also teaches us that real love is not always easy to see. Sometimes love asks us to make painful choices. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones we understand the least. And sometimes the truth comes too late. Emeka finally learned what Osimiri had done for him, but he could never thank her. She was already gone. So my people, Before you decide who is good and who is bad, take time to learn the whole story. Our elders have always said, the truth may come late, but it always finds its way home. Thank you so much for staying with us till the end. Kindly like this video if you've enjoyed our story. Subscribe if you love stories like this with lessons to learn from. See you next time.